Get ready to get your questions answered by financial advisors. Learn how to put more money back in your pockets regardless of where you're starting your financial journey with your host, Hannah Mitrea. All right, everybody, welcome back to Virtual U.S. Financial Advisors podcast. I am super excited for today's episode. I have Danqin Fang. All right. Well, I'm super excited to have you on the show today, Danqin, and to really talk about financial planning and holistic planning. So welcome.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm very, very honored to be here today.
Yeah. And so, tell me a little bit about you and kind of your background. So, before you got into financial advising and planning, how did you, grow up? Or tell us a little bit about you. What are those things?
Sure. So I was born and raised in China in a small coastal town. By definition, our small town starts with 2 million population, and that's a consensus a few years ago. Just to give you perspective. Growing up, I always wanted to do something about helping people. And so I got into psychology, but in college, when I was choosing my major, I didn't really quite understand the career path if I chose psychology major. And so I ended up being very practical, which I did the accounting degree in my college time. And that gave me the access to the business world, the numbers. And I realized I am really gifted in numbers, but there's still something missing. I still feel like I wanted to incorporate more people element into my work. And that's how I found financial planning and wealth management industry, thanks to Google. And at the same time, from a personal life story, growing up in a small town, even though in your definition, it's definitely a huge town, I always was very curious and adventurous. And I envisioned myself living my life in a foreign country for an extended period. And so I thought, why not just do it all together? Because the financial planning industry in the US has relatively a more clearly defined career path. If I came here as a student doing the graduate degree, and after that, I can get a firm internship. And then from there, I could stay at that company. And so that's sort of how I started my journey in the US as well after I made that decision. And I went to Texas Tech University, which is one of the best programs that offer in this country for financial planning and wealth management. And I met a lot of great teachers and mentors. And from there, I interned a few internships throughout the country and landed my first official job in a firm in Miami. And that was also because, as an immigrant myself, it was not as easy to just find a job. There is this extra step that the company has to be willing to sponsor my immigration journey as well. And so I was very grateful that this company in Miami was able to see the value in me and to go through that with me to help me to become an American eventually, and really helped create this opportunity for me to chase my dream here. And fast forward a couple of years in that firm, in that city, I started to hit a ceiling in both my personal life and also my professional life.
Mm-hmm.
And professionally, I started to notice I have developed enough experience and the knowledge to the point that I really embody the value of holistic financial planning approach. And at that time, I just started learning more about that.
Mm-hmm.
But that company already has a very well established process that served very well for their clients. And so the vision is definitely not as aligned as I would see that. And that was really one of the major reasons I left that company. At the same time, I also feel I didn't see myself settling down in the city of Miami.
Yeah.
And I wanted to move to a different place that I would feel a sense of groundness. And so I looked around, and Austin couldn't be better fit for what I was seeking, the community, the people, the music, the food. And so I moved here, and luckily with a very good job offer from a company in Austin as well. And after working there for a little bit, about 2.5 years, same challenge emerged again, because during those 2.5 years, I started to dive deeper and deeper into the holistic financial planning, starting with life planning. And that process itself takes an intentional extra step to really take your time to get to know your clients before you move the assets over, start managing, and then give recommendations based on what you see on the numbers side. And that itself is also a vision that is not their vision. And as I started to grow more maturely into the professional version of myself, I started to feel even stronger that I really needed to align how I feel about my work in a way that I do it or I serve my clients. And so I started approaching a few clients at that time and just offer those extra life planning services on top of whatever I was offering. And they really took up my offer, and I saw the transformation in them. And that really validated and solicited my conviction in really delivering financial planning in this super, super holistic way. And fast forward, last year, I started my company, and everything started and got approved in late October. And by now, I have been in a very blessed position working with clients who are really seeing the value of my approach and of my interest and curiosity in investing them upfront as much as I could. And in the long way, when you look at it, because we are in essentially what's called a trust and relationship business, this is actually a more efficient approach in the long way. But in the short term, yes, my onboarding process is a lot longer, and the assets are taking a lot longer to be transferred over. However, this is what's in the best interest in clients. If I were out there seeking advisor, I would like this type of service, because I would not want to give my client a ladder against the wrong wall and ask them to start climbing as fast as they can. And guess what? In a few years, when they are at the top of that wall, they looked around, they were like, oops, that's where I meant to go, not here. And so talking about efficiency, right? Like, how many years do we have in our life that we could do it all over again? Of course, we can pivot and challenge and change. But if I had the opportunity at the very beginning, let's figure out where you are going first. Are you going to New York, or are you going to Tampa, Florida? Right? Let's set the destination first, and then have the GPS, which is our financial plan, to get you there instead of just start climbing right away. So
Yeah.
that's sort of the brief overview of my journey.
Yeah, no, I love that. There's a lot there to unpack, really. And starting at the very beginning, 2 million people, it's a small town. It was crazy. I drove through Nebraska and on a Saturday, and everything was closed because I don't know if there's 2 million people in the state. So that was really amazing. And then, being here at Texas Tech, and that immigration is not easy. It's not as easy as people think for immigrants to come here. And so, going through that journey is incredible that you did that and found a company that was willing. I love that there was a company there for you to be able to go. But I also understand Miami, it takes a certain kind of person to want to stay forever.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so you're located in Austin now. And so that's one of the questions we like to ask every financial advisor and planner we talk to. However, you're not limited to working with people just in Austin. So do you have clients all over the country?
Yes, I am virtual primarily. That's why we are on this virtual
Yeah.
podcast. That actually gives me a lot of flexibility to work with clients all over the states, and I do. And for local clients in Austin, of course, they get some additional benefits, which is I do accommodate for in-person meetings if they request and if they are in Austin. And that doesn't mean my clients out of state won't ever get to meet me in person. I love traveling, and that's also part of the reason I started my own business to fulfill my personal life plan is to have this autonomy and flexibility to travel and also work remotely at the same time. And so I do accommodate and plan ahead of time to meet clients in person who are out of state and who are on my way of my travel whenever it happens. And so that's a long-winded answer to answer your question. Yeah.
I love that. I love traveling too. I'm like, actually, two places I want to travel to is Miami and China.
Hmm.
We were looking at a flight and it was going to have a layover in Hong Kong, and I was so excited. I know it definitely isn't a small town, but it's that first step
Yes.
kind of thing. But something at the beginning when we were talking about the journey that kind of like stuck with me is you talked about how you worked with these other companies and you're working with your clients and offering the financial planning to them. And you saw that transformation, and that's where it really clicked. You saw this transformation in your clients. Can you kind of
Mhm.
share, like, what did that transformation look like? What was that pivot that was happening prior to financial planning for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So one of the most recent example was that was a client that was that company for many, many years, and the wife was really engaged in those meetings. And when I started working with them, I experienced the exact same pattern until I offered them life planning. And they were also at the time seeking clarity in their life because of a lot of transition going on. And so even though they were super busy, we are talking about working 70 hours a week, but they still were able to make time to meet with me to go through that process for themselves. And after we get out of that meeting, that process, what they really understood for themselves, perhaps for the very first time, is that creating the time and the space and the money to travel, to visit families, and to create memories with their children when they are still young is way more important to them than to keep up with the Joneses, like keep upgrading their houses into a bigger and better community. And at the moment, ironically, they were just spending money out of their budget because of inflation unexpected to build their perhaps their biggest and the most successful symbolic house, Lake Travis. And they were at
Not a
the
cheap place to
last
go.
inning of completing that dream house, right? And that was really interesting when we get to that, you know, step. And in my mind, I was like, oh no, what are we going to do? Because they literally are doing something they didn't really care as much, but they have devoted so much resources to it already, and it's about to finish. And now they are really understanding what's more important to them, what they would like to do instead. And so I was trying to understand how we can remodify or modify or remake their financial plan. And so we created different scenarios just to be also more practical about where they are in their situation. And so one of the solutions they came up with themselves through our discussions were they were going to sell their dream house. They just spent 3 years building it.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about it because, like Travis, I've been there. Those houses are mansions.
Right? Right?
So that's a huge shift.
Yeah, and I was in awe because I did
Mhm.
visit their house. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful. But this is the moment I realized to myself, had I start working with them in a very holistic way earlier, right? Or at the very beginning, I started working with them, or before, they started building this house things might be a lot more easier for them to handle instead of dramatically shift the course and then change certain big decisions that they already had made in life that has a lot of impact in financial and also non-financial realms. And so that's one example. And then the other example, several years, earlier than that example. So this client was having a lot of money, still has, has a lot of money. And she has way more enough than what she needs for her life. And she also has a decent legacy she can pass on to her children.
Mm-hmm.
But even given that situation, which I have seen very common in my retiree clients when I was working in Miami because of the demographic there, she was having trouble to really spend money to have a private workout instructor.
Mm-hmm.
And so despite she had injuries and she was recovering and she really needs a personalized instructor to give her personal intention and customized training plan to help her go through her recovery journey and also continue to build her health. And so that's something you would think, oh, you have a lot of money, come on. And so yes, that's what I exactly did as advisor back then for a few years with her. And I just have her come into the office and pull up on the screen all the numbers, all the beautiful projections, and tell her like, hey, you would have, still several $1,000,000 in the end of your lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
And you will never run out of money based on these assumptions we're putting, right? And
reasonably won't run out of money.
exactly.
No.
And those assumptions are still relatively conservative because of how, you would like to be conservative about those projections. But it didn't work. Every time she comes in, she talks about it. She says, oh my God, I just, I got injured again here. I know I need to spend this money. I need to spend on this. But again, she just couldn't. She couldn't really spend it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I changed my conversation after I learned more about the emotional parts of, how you relate to money is how you relate to yourself. And so I started asking herself, just curious, like, hey, what was your memory about money that you felt, you couldn't spend? Any other incidences that you felt, similar emotions? And then she started to share about, yeah, I have this friend. We go out and shopping. I know I have money, but I still can't really purchase all these things I want. I like nice things sometimes, but I just can't. They are so expensive. And then I said, okay, good, good. All right, just keep thinking about all your memories. What was your earliest memory about, the feeling of not having enough, like things are too expensive? And then she told me that there was one incident in her childhood. She was told by her mother that this is too expensive. We cannot afford it. We don't have enough. And then at that time, was it their financial situation in their family? Perhaps. But is the situation continue to be that way in her reality financially now? No. But because she registered those beliefs in her subconscious mind that things are too expensive, that we cannot afford, and that scarcity mindset really dictated every decision financially when it comes to spending, even when her financial reality has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And that was really a very good aha moment for herself.
Mm-hmm.
To be aware of something that runs her life, but was never aware of before.
Yeah.
And then the next time I met up with her, she was glowing and excited, talking about how happy she is with her new personal trainer and all these things about it, and how she is finding value in, really exercising with intention and all these health benefits, of course. And that was also another moment I was telling myself, wow, the words come out of financial advisors carry a weight. And how I can speak to those people that, cross lives with me is something I really want to be very intentional about. And how can I make sure I do the best I could? Well, based on what I know of now, I have to really view them as each individual human being in their imperfect human body. And everyone has their own story, their own beliefs about money, their own unique relationship about money, and also their own unique aspirations and the goals and purpose about their money. And if I can start my doing a financial plan from that lens, that space, I felt I could do something that I feel like is going to be really meaningful because the plan is truly personalized for them. It's not a cookie cut, you know, rule of thumb financial advice that is available. Even AI can tell you, give me 10 financial tips. In 2 seconds, you got many rule of thumb
Yeah.
advice. So
Those are two really powerful stories of big shifts too. And, you kind of were talking on it, just that mindset around money. And I think people have, or people think there's two mindsets. It's you spend money or you save all your money. But you have to live in the middle because neither one of the sides are fully living, I feel like sometimes. And there's really no right or wrong thing that we spend our money on. Like in your first example, buying a house could be the biggest achievement in somebody's ultimate goal. But when it's not, there's no point in doing that. And so we have to start looking at those different things. And so, a couple of questions that I have here that we're going to come back to. So that's why I'm writing down just like little notes to remind me. So I have to look down what I'm doing. But really talking about the mindset of it. And then I want to come back to after is I know you talk a couple of times here on, they have to take that time at the beginning and it's a lot of time. So I want to come back to that. I don't want to move to that yet just because I feel like it makes more sense. Let's talk about the mindset a little bit. And, how does the mindset affect this? And also you really talked about it there with the one client in Miami, how she was told one time, we can't afford that. We don't have money. And, I see it with me and my siblings. We went 3 different directions on how we manage money, and none of them are wrong. They're just 3 different directions. And so how do you help somebody really shift into a different mindset that will help them get that bigger goal that they're looking for versus just saving or spending?
So this is exactly why I take the approach that I'm approaching my clients right now, because I see the power in myself as well. So this is perhaps what you describe is the number one, or if not top 3, perhaps challenge advisors face and experience with their clients. We have this beautiful plan. We make really great recommendations. But guess what? When clients are not implementing them, it doesn't mean anything at all. And so what takes a person to take actions to change is really from the emotions or the energy they feel. We all know, yes, going to bed early, getting up early, eating healthy is important, is healthy, it's good things, habits for our health. But how many of us will follow exactly all the healthy routines, right? We don't. And why is that? It's because when we rationally understand what we need to do, what we should to do, this doesn't translate actions into actions. What makes us to take actions is how we feel. If I felt that how important it is for me to have those healthy routines because I really wanted to be there for those experiences or for my kids, for my grandkids in the future, right? Like if I have that clarity of that ultimate motivation and I have to feel it and I felt it, I will feel motivated. Like every cell in my body will be like, yes, let's go, get it done. We are going to get up early and go to bed early. and start, eating healthy. And so there has to be very personalized motives that we have to understand about each and every individual. And that's what's making them to move, right? We all have convictions. We are not going to change that. Don't fight with egos. That's a lose battle. But what you can do is, despite the beliefs that we are different, the things we came from that are different, but what do we want ultimately, right? What is that we truly desire in our life? And once we have that beacon clear and straightforward, they know how to get there. They have every motivation and strength to take the actions. They can move mountains once their fire inside of themselves is lit and being felt. And so that is why I start with, what is that really essential for you to feel to live a great life? Because that's where the prize is for them to take actions together.
Yeah.
And that also explains why a lot of financial plans, especially if they are more standardized in a certain way, people are not really taking actions as much. Like behavioral change, it has to be coming from within. And what's coming from within is that we are wired to have to know where we are going and what we want, and then we will make it happen. And if we don't have that clarity, don't have that drive, we are not going to change anything. Why would I?
Yeah. Yeah, as you're saying this, I don't know if I'm being called out internally. No, I think because I've worked with traditional financial planners, like for me and my husband's personal, and I will agree 1,000%. We have a number and it's like, okay, this is how much you want to save so you can retire and do these things. But we also very much we want to travel. Like that is more priority to us than that retirement. So we keep spending that money.
Yeah.
And we do it responsibly and things like that. However, we're not putting that money towards retirement like the financial planner is telling us to. And so I think that kind of leads me over anyways to my next question I had here is what is holistic planning and how is it different than just financial planning?
So this is a very good question because I feel like definition is really hard. Everybody approaches differently, right? Like, let's say there's 1,000 ways to go to Rome, right? As long as we get to Rome, it all works. And so it's hard to really define financial planning, holistic planning, comprehensive planning. Those are the buzzwords out there. But I have to choose one. And so the reason I chose holistic is coming from the concept of holistic well-being overall. I personally am very big into personal health and fitness and wellness. And so in that world, you hear the word holistic a lot. And that really inspired me because, what I essentially offer to clients, whatever you call it, life planning or, talking about goals, values, aspirations, understand your money motives, relationships, it all came and it starts from very deep empathetic listening skills. And that listening is not just listening to what you tell me, it's listening to feel your energy, to feel your inner world. Listen to connect to your inner world. And then have you to connect to your energy you feel as well through your dreams. And therefore, the traditional financial planning, a lot of times when we focus on the numbers, it has more of a focus on the external world, what you already had, being around with, your assets, your income, your expenses, your liabilities, and then how we can maximize that. Everything stays here. And I have to say, our mind, our brain is smart, is phenomenal. keeps us alive. It's beautiful doing what it does, but it cannot do it all. Like what you desire in your heart that you can feel in your body, that reflects how you feel about your inner world. And that really interferes with the outer world, the numbers. And so therefore, when you are listening at such a deeper level, it has to be holistic. And therefore, I chose this word that if I have to give a name or a label to differentiate my approach, it is really that level of holistic view. And it starts with that deep, empathetic, non-judgmental listening that they will get from me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I love that. I think what you said there of like we might be saying one thing, but we're saying that thing just like your client in Miami is, I need to save money, I need to save money, I need to save money. But holistically, that's not what she wanted. Like, so ultimately wasn't what she needed. And she probably wanted to live a long life so she could watch her legacy grow. And so for that to happen, she needed that personal trainer. So it's really looking at all the different sides of it. And so one thing that came to mind, and I'm not going to ask you right now, but I'm going to just kind of plant the seed there of, do you have like a money mantra that you tell people to say or an affirmation? And if you don't, that's fine too, but I was just going to plant that because I want to talk about how, at the beginning and as we're talking about this, like this is not a one-time conversation and bam, I can manage your money for you. I can help you grow this path. It does take time and there's planning involved in it. And so a busy person that's listening to this podcast is like, I don't have that time to give. What is the reason, one, they should, and how do they make it work that they can invest that time up front to build that plan later on?
Yeah, so very good question. First of all, the mantra, yes, I do have one. I think this is also a learning journey myself about my own relationship with my money, is that I really get to understand that money is the means to end, not the end. Very often, out of our own sense of insecurity or anxiety or fear, we often confuse ourselves that money is the end because that's how it looks like. Oh, I need to have enough money. I cannot run out of money. I need money to retire. I need money for healthcare in retirement. All true statement. But money is the means to the end, not the end. Meaning, what's the end of these statements? The end is I wanted to feel that I can live with dignity and health to enjoy the experience I have as a human in this life till the end of my journey. That's our end. But how can we get there? There are many ways. What is your way? So that is sort of the mantra I always feel very inspired about. Yeah.
That's powerful. Yeah. Like just kind of taking it in and, money is not that means to the end. And I think that's what me and my husband always say, like, we can't take it with us, which is simple, but that's how we've looked at money a lot. And I feel like that gives it a deeper meaning. Like money is a means to get to the end. It is not the end.
Yeah.
Powerful, that little switch there on how you see it, because hopefully that helps somebody that maybe is like struggling with being willing to spend money to see like, hey, money's not the end. Like that's not the end game. And also I think we hear a lot where people, they put the end game of, I want to make this much money. And then they make that much money. And then what's next? Like, okay, well, I guess this much money now. And so when we make money the end of something, it also doesn't give you as much joy when you achieve it, I think, because, it was that journey that got there that should have been enjoyable and the way you got to spend it. So I really like that mantra.
Yeah. And we are humans. And the one thing humans commonly do is that we make meanings of things we cannot understand. And so, especially when we are swamped by all these emotions that are very challenging and disturbing, our brain started to fill in. And that really creates a lot of the confusion, thinking that, oh, as long as I have money, I can solve all the problems I have now.
Money, there will never be enough money in the world to solve all the problems in the world. But I was gonna mention too, I love that you're like, we're humans, and it's something I say all the time too. It's just like I teach at college, I teach marketing at college, and like when I make a mistake, I'm like, I'm just a human, guys. But with money, it's good to remember that too. Like, hey, we're all humans, we're all gonna make
Yeah,
mistakes, we're all a little imperfect with it.
yeah,
So I love that. So great money mantra. And so how do
yeah.
we manage the time side of
The
it now?
time, yes,
Yeah,
yes. I know you're going to get back to this question.
yeah.
So this is not just asked by you because I'm also developing my experience and my training with the Kinder Life Institute planning to assist with other advisors who wants to embody this method in their client work. And those advisors, they ask us all the time, like, okay, so how can you be practical? How can we, make it work with our business models? And so what I have been doing is that there are two ways to look at it. The first way is we all need to start from somewhere. If you can do a little bit more, it's always better than not to do it at all.
Mhm.
You may not be able to help the client, have all the time the client needs, especially a lot of people when they are being in this habit of just on the mode of go, 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 what's next, and in the busyness of life and work and all these things, they may really have time for themselves to reflect on anything, right? And so it would be really hard for them to all of a sudden now asking, all right, what do I want in my life? What makes me happy? I don't know. It's just like how I live life now, So it is challenging, right? And so that doesn't mean you have to do it all or nothing.
Mhm.
If you can incorporate to some extent into your existing business model by creating space intentionally to allow your clients to start to feel more connected with their money, it's already going to be really a great result regardless.
Mhm.
And so that's one way to understand those questions that raised by many of those advisors, including you are asking about that. And then the other thing I look at it is when we talk about time, it, it comes to the bottom of prioritization, right? Let me ask you, Hannah. Let's say, all of a sudden, hypothetically, the SpaceX rocket hit Earth in one of its missions. And all of a sudden, the whole system changed. Instead of 24 hours, we have 23 hours going forward. What do you need to cut out to
Mhm.
fit in your day to 23 hours?
Social media. Like, cut it
Congratulations.
out.
You
So,
just gained an extra hour
yeah.
every day for yourself.
Just thinking about it that way, like you think about that one thing you're wasting that hour on, and
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of things, then yeah, SpaceX says the rocket hit and time sped up because we're wasting that hour a day anyways.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so then it really comes down to prioritization. Now you all of a sudden you are not complaining about not having time anymore. You just gain an hour extra every day now. You can do it on anything you want to do. And so that's the second way of answering your question. And then the sub meaning of that is also the view. I often say that yes, I am taking more time onboarding my clients in the beginning, if you look at it on the short term way. But if you look at long term, throughout the client lifespan, in that first client story I shared, right? Like
Mhm.
it would be actually more efficient for them not to start that house altogether if they knew that from the very beginning. And so, yes, they had to make a few extra hours out of their 70, hours per week schedule, but that saves them so much more time, energy, and stress
Mhm.
if they had done what they really felt was important for them and they supposed to do for themselves, right?
Mhm.
And so that's how I sometimes just share with people out there that they feel the challenge of the time. It's because at the end of the day, Hannah, nobody is guaranteed for tomorrow. If we had to be 100% rational about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, we are humans. We are innately optimistic about how much time we have.
Oh,
And we wouldn't think we are just gonna, if we are in our 30s or 40s or 20s, we are gonna think we have about 50, 60, 70 years ahead of us, right?
yeah.
Oh, I'll deal with that tomorrow or in a few years. And that talks about not just retiree clients that they are waiting to live their life. They are like, oh, once I retire, I will do this and that. We are seeing that more often in people in our younger ages, demographics. We are waiting to live our life, assuming tomorrow is always guaranteed. And if I tell you that, hey, there is this type of different way of living your life, you don't have to wait anymore. You could really live the life you always dreamed of, that freedom, the sense of fulfillment, happiness, joy, content, peace, right now, right here. Would you sign up or not?
Well, that comes to like a question right there. Like yes, of course I'd sign up, but then we get so skeptical that it's too good to be true. You know, I think that's where.
There's a reason why a dream is called a dream,
Mhm.
because we don't believe in ourselves to have those dreams. But anything remarkable in human history started with a dream. Use an example of the plane. We take it for granted now, but it started with somebody thinking, why couldn't we fly like a bird in the sky?
Mhm. Yeah. I was like, definitely some powerful statements there. Just, starting at the beginning, like what makes you happy? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like if somebody leaves listening to this and they can ask themselves that, they'll grow, because we so rarely do ask ourselves that of what makes us happy. And then just, what are we waiting for kind of thing. Like we're waiting
Mm-hmm.
to live our life, which is crazy. I had a friend whose father passed away during COVID, and I know that was one of his biggest regrets was his father and his mom wanted to travel everywhere, but they kept waiting. And then something that completely out of his control came in and made that waiting not matter anymore. And so he's the one who's now traveling with his mom because he's like, we're not waiting for this anymore. But you never wanted to get to that degree where, you can't. And so definitely thinking about that 1 hour a day and, make the time to make the plan. One thing I think about is, so I made my team create bingo goal sheets this year, and
Mm-hmm.
we all did it because I did it last year. And doing this was the one thing that really helped me stay motivated,
Mm-hmm.
because, we may say like, yeah, I want to make this much money so I can go do these things, but we don't write it down and truly put it on paper. We're not looking at it every day. We're not remembering it every day. And so having these goals and has helped so much to do that. And I see this as a very similar thing. You're planning your life 10, 15, 20, 50 years, depending on how young you are, down the road, and start planning it now so you can get there. Having these, like we're seeing us mark off goals that last year we would have never done because we just didn't write them down. And I think that's such a powerful thing with what you're doing and helping them dig those out and kind of reset their mind around those a little bit. So
Yeah.
what's one piece of financial advice that want to make sure somebody leaves this episode with?
Mm. This is a question that carries a lot of weight. I have to choose one.
I know.
I would say that to start being aware of what your relationships are with your money is perhaps very important and valuable financial advice, even though it sounds like non-financial, but it touches and happens and it dictates pretty much all your financial decisions that has financial consequences. and start to bring awareness to that would be tremendously helpful, because change will not happen unless you know what it is for you now and what is it you want, like what relationship you want with money, right? A typical example that I often see a lot of people talk about is, I want to transform my scarcity mindset into abundance mindset when it comes to my relationship with my money. And so what does that mean financially? Financially, not only I'm willing to feel not guilty, but also joyful to spend things, experiences, and people I intentionally wanted to share with. But also, it could translate financially to be like, oh, because I no longer feel the lack, I get to share more. And when I share, I don't feel the inch of anxiety about, oh, what if I don't have enough? In the end, maybe I should give less this time. Maybe I'll give more when I can give more in the future. But if you came from the place of abundance, you know, because a lot of times people's financial reality is they are abundant. A lot of the clients we work with, they are abundant, but they never feel the abundance themselves. And that really is them getting in their own way to live a life that could even be more potential and more fulfilling and more happy and more joyful, leveraging the power of their means.
That's powerful. Definitely one thing we all get really scared about is even talking about money. And so giving that as the advice of like, get comfortable with, you know, how you view money and how you use money. And, talk to other people about money. Talk to, if you have a spouse or a friend. It's one thing I've started doing with friends in business. Associates, we just get very candid about it because money shouldn't be a scary thing. And so talking about those things so that we can all grow together. But for you individually, talking about money, just to not be scared of it is a big thing. And if you don't have somebody you can talk to about money, you can talk to Danqin about your money.
Yes,
So
yes.
please tell people, how can they reach out to you and learn more and work with you? And then just so anybody that's listening can get in touch.
Sure. And so, first and foremost, my website, www.wealthbeyondmath.com. And I also am active on social media like LinkedIn, which is essentially you search my name, it should pop up. And because my name is unique, and so it helps you to search me easily, there won't be a million, Joes when you search Joe. And also, I write a blog that publish on my website. And with that, I also announce workshops I will do in the communities. And the type of financial workshops I do is quite interesting. In addition to the regular, numbers type of, financial tips you would see, I especially take pride in offering workshops that are especially helping you identify your mindset and your relationship with your workshop through guided meditative journals and visualization. And also, I'm also trained in somatic breathwork facilitation. And so I facilitate your energy to clear those limiting money beliefs that you want to get rid of, to start, really transform and experience the freedom that you would have from your money. And so these are the things that are all published and announced on my website under the blog page. And at the same time, I also do events in the community, and that's more of whenever it happens, I will announce it on my website and also on my social media as well. And so, yeah, these are the ways to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Well, that's such a cool workshop, mixing kind of the somatic breath work with the finance side of it. I know I just read a book by Mel Robbins where she talks about being kind of in the wrong part of the brain just because like you get triggered in there. And so having that breath work is really powerful to get that clarity. Because clarity is something you desperately need when you're talking about money and planning your life. So awesome. Well, we will have all of Danqin's information, her website, her LinkedIn. I'll link to her events that she's hosting in the show notes. So if you're listening and you want to find her, we'll make it as easy as possible as well. But thank you so much, Danqin. This was extremely valuable.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Virtual U.S. Financial Advisor podcast. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS so you'll never miss an episode. We'd love a rating on iTunes, or better yet, tell a friend about the show, which will help us grow as well. If you want to learn from any of our financial advisors, head over to our website, virtualusfinancialadvisor.com, to learn more about each financial advisor and connect with them personally. Be sure to tune in next week to get more advice from the expert financial advisors. See you on the next episode.